Netanyahu orders the clock sped up and Israel storms Gaza City. Operation Gideon's Chariots enters Phase 2. 60,000 more reservists, tunnels to be crushed, 1 million civilians trapped inside. Hamas calls it sabotage of ceasefire talks. The UN warns of disaster. But Trump hails BIBI a war hero. Ceasefire or conquest? The choice just vanished. Israel's military has begun what it calls the first steps of its invasion of Gaza City, marking a significant escalation in the nearly 2-year conflict. IDF spokesman Brigadier General Efi Defrin confirmed the operation, stating that Israeli forces have already taken control of areas surrounding the Palestinian territory's largest urban center.
We are not waiting. We have begun the preliminary operations in the first stages of the attack on Gaza City. And already now, IDF forces are holding the outskirts of Gaza City.
The military spokesman detailed the scope of the operation, explaining that Israel has launched what it terms Phase 2 of Operation Gideon's Chariots.
We will deepen the attack on Hamas in Gaza City, a stronghold of governmental and military terror for the terrorist organization. We will intensify the strikes on the terror infrastructure above and below ground and sever the population's dependence on Hamas. In accordance with the guidance of the political leadership and after the plans were approved by the Chief of Staff, the IDF has begun the second phase of the campaign, Phase 2 of Operation Gideon's Chariots.
This announcement comes as Israel called up tens of thousands of reservists, with Defrin confirming that 60,000 conscription letters would be sent out this week, followed by an additional 20,000 later this month. The timing of the offensive has raised questions about Israel's commitment to ongoing ceasefire negotiations, particularly as mediators work to bridge gaps between Hamas and Israeli negotiators. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has reportedly accelerated the timeline for the operation. His office announced that the Israeli leader sped up plans for taking control of Hamas strongholds.
Ahead of approval of the plans for the operation in Gaza City, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has directed that the timetables for seizing control of the last terrorist strongholds and the defeat of Hamas be shortened.
Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump weighed in on the conflict during a radio interview with conservative host Mark Levin on Tuesday. Trump praised Netanyahu's leadership and made controversial remarks about his own role in the conflict. Referring to his approval of airstrikes on Iranian nuclear facilities, Trump said,
"He's a war hero. I guess I am too. Nobody cares, but I am too. I mean, I sent those planes."
Hamas has responded sharply to Israel's announcement, accusing Netanyahu of deliberately sabotaging ceasefire efforts.
Today's announcement by the terrorist occupation army of the start of an operation against Gaza City and its nearly 1 million residents and displaced persons demonstrates a blatant disregard for the efforts made by the mediators. Netanyahu's disregard for the mediators' proposal and his failure to respond to it proves that he is the true obstructionist of any agreement, that he does not care about the lives of Israeli captives, and that he is not serious about their return.
The criticism comes as Hamas recently accepted a proposal for a 60-day ceasefire that would include the release of 10 living hostages. Officials from mediating countries, Egypt and Qatar, told the Jerusalem Post that the outline presented is very close to the framework Israel had agreed to previously. However, an unnamed senior Israeli official told Hebrew media outlets that Israel does not currently plan to dispatch a team to Qatar or Egypt to take part in the talks. Reports also suggested that Israel, for the time being, has decided to avoid responding at all to the phased hostage release deal proposal approved on Monday by Hamas. United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has also voiced strong opposition to the planned offensive. Speaking from Japan, where he was attending a conference on African development, Guterres called for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza.
It is vital to reach a ceasefire immediately in Gaza.
Guterres also called for the unconditional release of hostages held by Hamas and urged Israel to reverse its decision to expand settlement construction in the West Bank, which he described as illegal. The international community's concerns center on the potential humanitarian impact of the operation. Gaza City houses nearly 1 million residents and displaced persons, many of whom have already been forced to relocate multiple times during the conflict. French President Emmanuel Macron added his voice to the criticism.
The military offensive in Gaza that Israel is preparing can only lead to disaster for both peoples and risk plunging the entire region into a cycle of permanent war.
The IDF has released detailed figures about its military achievements since fighting resumed in March, following the collapse of a previous 60-day ceasefire. According to military statements issued Wednesday, Israeli forces have eliminated over 2,100 terror operatives during this period, including many senior Hamas commanders and leaders. IDF spokesman Brigadier General Defrin described Hamas as now being a battered and bruised guerrilla organization following the sustained Israeli offensive. The military reports striking over 10,000 terror targets using Air Force fighter jets, helicopters, drones and Navy vessels since March 18th. Among the most significant eliminations was the May 13th bombing that killed Mohammed Sinwar, the Hamas leader in Gaza and brother of the late Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar. The strike also eliminated Mohammed Shabana, commander of the terror groups Rafah Brigade, and Mahdi Quara, commander of the South Khan Yunis Battalion. According to the IDF, the three were killed along with other operatives while hiding in a tunnel under the European hospital in Khan Yunis. The military claims to have achieved operational control over 75% of the Gaza Strip's territory during its latest offensive. The operational control in the area enabled the IDF to significantly expand its activity, thereby dealing blows to the capabilities and terror infrastructure of the Hamas terror organization and disrupting its chain of command, the military stated. However, the human cost of the conflict continues to mount. The Hamas-run health ministry in Gaza reports that 10,576 Palestinians have been killed since March, though this figure does not differentiate between combatants and civilians. The overall Palestinian death toll from 22 months of war has now passed 62,000, according to Gaza health officials.